Before we dive in, viewer discretion is advised. This content is for entertainment purposes.
What happens when one of Hollywood's most carefully guarded young stars walks onto a daytime talk show stage expecting light banter, and instead finds himself quietly cornered by a question that presses too hard, too fast, in front of a live audience that can feel every breath? What happens when politeness becomes a shield, and silence becomes louder than any argument? Before we go any further, if you love being pulled inside moments like this, where celebrity, power, and emotion collide in real time, subscribe to Talk Narrative right now, and make sure you like and comment on this video. Your support keeps these stories coming. The applause swells as Timothée Chalamet steps out onto the stage, slim frame, soft smile, that familiar mix of confidence and restraint that has made him both an industry darling and an internet obsession. The audience rises almost instinctively, clapping longer than usual, phones already lifted in discreet angles. He waves, not too big, not too small. Just enough. It's the wave of someone who knows he's being watched from every possible angle and has learned how to move without giving too much away. Joy Behar leans forward at the table, eyes sharp, lips curled in a smile that looks friendly but calculating. Whoopi Goldberg gives a warm nod. Sunny Hostin glances at her notes. Sarah Haynes beams. On the surface, it feels like another polished talk narrative-style moment. Young star, awards buzz, charming anecdotes. But there's a subtle shift in the air as Timothée takes his seat. Something tightens. The audience feels it before they can name it. Timothée sits with his hands loosely clasped, ankle tucked behind the other, posture relaxed but alert. He listens as Whoopi opens with praise. His latest film, his range, the way he seems to vanish into roles. He smiles, thanks her, voice soft, measured. He always speaks like this. Never rushed. Never careless. Every word feels chosen. Weighed. Joy waits. She always does. The conversation drifts through safe territory first. Fashion risks. Working with legendary directors. Fans screaming his name on red carpets. Laughter ripples through the room when he tells a self-deprecating story about tripping on stage at an awards show. The audience loves him for that. His willingness to look human, awkward, unarmored. But Joy's eyes don't leave him. Not really. So, she says finally, tilting her head, voice light but pointed. You're everywhere right now. Movies, fashion, activism. You've become sort of a symbol for a generation. Timothée nods politely. I don't know about that, but... And with that, Joy continues, gently cutting in, comes influence. Responsibility. There it is. The word hangs between them, heavy and undefined. Timothée's smile tightens just a fraction. Not defensive. Not angry. Just cautious. I guess, he says slowly. It depends on what you mean. Joy leans back, crossing her arms. Well, a lot of young people look up to you. They listen to what you say. And some people feel you're very careful, almost too careful, about what you speak out on. The audience murmurs. A few heads turn. Someone inhales sharply. Timothée blinks once. He doesn't rush to fill the silence. That's the first thing people notice when he's uncomfortable. He lets the space exist. He respects it. Or maybe he hides inside it. I try to be thoughtful, he replies. I don't want to speak on things I don't fully understand. Joy smiles, but it doesn't quite reach her eyes. But isn't silence also a statement? There it is. The push. A beat passes. 2. The studio feels suddenly smaller, tighter, like the walls have leaned in just a little. Timothée glances briefly toward Whoopi, then back to Joy. His shoulders remain relaxed, but his jaw sets, just slightly. I don't see it as silence, he says. His tone is calm. Gentle, even. I see it as listening. A few audience members clap softly. Someone says Joy raises an eyebrow. Listening to who? Timothée exhales through his nose, almost a laugh, but not quite. To people who are living experiences, I'm not. I think it can be dangerous when celebrities rush to comment on everything without context. Sunny shifts in her seat. Sarah watches Timothée closely now, her smile fading into something more attentive. Joy isn't satisfied. But don't you think people with platforms have an obligation to lead? This time, Timothée pauses longer. The camera zooms in slightly, catching the way his fingers interlace, then separate. He looks down for half a second, then back up. When he speaks, his voice is still soft, but there's steel underneath it now. I think leadership can look like humility, he says. Like knowing when to step back. The audience reaction is immediate. Louder claps. A few cheers. Not explosive, but unmistakable. Joy chuckles, waving a hand dismissively. That sounds very nice. But some would say it's a way of avoiding backlash. A ripple of tension moves through the crowd. This is no longer casual. This is a line being tested. Timothy's expression doesn't change dramatically, but something shifts in his eyes. He's still polite, still composed, but he's no longer simply answering. He's choosing to push back. I think backlash is part of being visible, he says. I'm not afraid of it. I just don't think being loud automatically means being right. Whoopi leans forward slightly now, sensing the moment. Joy. Joy holds up a hand. I'm just saying, for someone so vocal in your art, you're pretty quiet in real life. Timothy nods slowly. Because my art is where I express myself most honestly. The room goes quiet. Even the applause hesitates, like it's waiting for permission. Timothy continues, carefully. When I'm acting, I've done the work. I've studied. I've lived with the character. When it comes to real-world issues, I'm still learning. And I don't think pretending otherwise helps anyone. The audience applauds more confidently now. Someone whistles. Joy presses her lips together, tapping her pen against the table. But people want answers, she insists. They want to know where you stand. Timothy meets her gaze fully this time. No smile. No apology. Just calm clarity. I stand for being responsible with my voice, he says. Even if that disappoints people. That lands. The applause is louder now, rolling through the studio in waves. Whoopi nods slowly, approving. Sunny murmurs something under her breath. Sarah claps openly. Joy laughs again, but there's a tightness to it. Well, you're very good at sounding reasonable. Timothy smiles then, small, genuine, unprovocative. I try to be. The tension doesn't explode. It doesn't turn into shouting or walk-offs. Instead, it simmers. That's what makes it uncomfortable. That's what makes it real. As the conversation moves on, awkwardly redirected toward his upcoming project, the audience is still buzzing. You can feel it in the way they clap a little too hard, laugh a little too loudly, like they're processing something they didn't expect to witness. Timothy answers the safer questions smoothly, but the earlier exchange lingers in the air like smoke. Every smile feels slightly more deliberate now. Every laugh, slightly delayed. Joy watches him differently. Not hostile, but no longer amused. And Timothy? He sits the same way he did before. Calm, polite, but no longer just the charming guest. He's drawn a line, quietly, respectfully, and everyone in the room knows it. And the moment isn't over yet. The applause fades, but the atmosphere doesn't reset. That's the strange thing about moments like this. They don't end when the clapping stops. They linger. They stretch. They sit in the space between questions, in the way people shift in their chairs, in the way laughter comes half a second too late. Timothy feels it as the hosts pivot to the next topic. He keeps his posture loose, attentive, but inside, he's alert now. Not defensive. Just awake. He knew something like this might happen the moment he agreed to come on. He'd weighed it carefully, the way he always does. Talk shows look friendly, but they are arenas. And arenas are unpredictable. Joy flips a page on her notes, glancing up with a practiced smile. So, your new film. Whoopi cuts in gently, sensing the tension still humming. It's getting incredible reviews. Timothy nods. I'm really proud of it. We put a lot of heart into. Joy leans forward again, not aggressively, but insistently. It's interesting, though, because the film deals with power, morality, choices. Heavy themes. Here we go again. Timothy doesn't sigh. He doesn't roll his eyes. He simply listens. Do you ever worry, Joy continues, that audiences might expect you to reflect those convictions off screen too? A low murmur ripples through the audience. Someone whispers, "Oh wow." Timothy smiles faintly. Not amused. Thoughtful. I think audiences are smarter than we give them credit for, he says. They know the difference between a character and a person. Joy tilts her head. Do they? The question hangs there, sharper than it sounds. Timothy's gaze flicks briefly toward the crowd. He can see faces now, some curious, some supportive, some clearly siding with Joy, hungry for something more dramatic. He understands the machine. He just refuses to feed it recklessly. I hope so, he replies. Because if we start expecting artists to perfectly embody every idea they explore, we're asking them to stop being human. A few claps break out. Not everyone, but enough. Sunny leans in now, her tone measured but probing. Do you ever feel pressure to be more outspoken, though? From studios, from fans, from social media. Timothy nods slowly. Of course. That pressure exists everywhere. And Sunny presses. And I sit with it, he says simply. I don't react immediately. I think reacting quickly is often how mistakes happen. Joy lets out a small laugh. You really don't like giving straight answers, do you? The audience reacts, some laughter, some groans. Timothy chuckles softly, shaking his head. I actually think I'm being very direct. That earns a louder response. Applause mixed with a few surprised laughs. Joy's smile tightens again. Direct without being specific. Timothy doesn't take the bait. Specificity requires certainty, he says. And I don't think certainty should be rushed. Whoopi finally steps in more firmly. I hear what he's saying. There's something to be said for not jumping on every issue just because people expect you to. Joy glances sideways at Whoopi. Sure, but there's also something to be said for courage. That word again. Courage. Responsibility. Obligation. Timothy inhales, deeper this time. When he speaks, there's a slight shift, not in volume, but in presence. The room quiets instinctively. I don't think courage always looks like speaking, he says. Sometimes it looks like knowing when your voice might drown out others. Silence. Not awkward silence. Focused silence. The audience leans in. Even the camera seems to hold its breath. Joy studies him for a long moment. For the first time since he sat down, she doesn't interrupt immediately. And who decides that? She asks finally. I do, Timothy replies. Calm. Unflinching. About my own voice. That lands harder than anything he's said so far. The applause is louder now, more unified. A few people stand halfway before sitting back down, unsure if this is that kind of moment. Whoopi nods, lips pressed together thoughtfully. Sunny looks impressed despite herself. Sarah smiles, relieved that someone has finally named the tension. Joy exhales through her nose, shaking her head slightly. You're very controlled, she says. Not quite a compliment. Not quite a criticism. Timothy smiles gently. I've had to be. The hosts pivot again, but the conversation can't fully escape what's already happened. Even as they discuss his upbringing, his early fame, his experiences navigating Hollywood at a young age, everything circles back to the same undercurrent, restraint versus expectation. When you were younger, Sarah asks, did you imagine this level of scrutiny? Timothy laughs, genuinely this time. Not at all. I thought acting was about disappearing. And now? Sarah asks. And now, he says, choosing his words carefully, it's about figuring out how to exist without disappearing, or performing a version of myself that isn't real. The audience murmurs appreciatively. Joy watches him closely, tapping her pen again. Do you ever worry that being this careful makes you seem distant? Timothy nods. Yes. That surprises her. But I'd rather seem distant, he continues, than be careless. Another wave of applause. Joy opens her mouth, then closes it. For a brief second, it looks like she might push again. The audience senses it. You can feel the collective anticipation, the unspoken question. Will she go there again? Instead, Joy leans back, folding her arms. Fair enough. It's not a concession. But it's not a challenge either. The conversation shifts toward lighter ground, upcoming roles, working with directors, the surreal nature of fame. But the earlier exchange has altered the dynamic. Timothy answers with the same politeness, the same warmth, but now there's a subtle authority beneath it. He's no longer just responding. He's steering. When Joy cracks a joke about him being too serious for his age, he smiles and plays along. But the audience hears it differently now. They've seen what happens when he's pushed. They know there's more under the surface. As the segment nears its end, Whoopi turns to him with a softer expression. I appreciate your honesty, she says. It takes guts to say you don't have all the answers. Timothy nods. Thank you. I think we all need more space to admit that. The applause is warm, sustained. Not explosive, but sincere. Joy joins in clapping, slower than the others. Her expression is unreadable. As the cameras pull back and the show moves toward a commercial break, Timothy adjusts in his seat, exhaling quietly. He doesn't look rattled, but he does look thoughtful. Processing. Backstage, producers exchange glances. This wasn't the fiery confrontation they sometimes hope for, but it was something else. Subtler. Sharper. The kind of moment that travels far beyond the studio walls. And somewhere out in the audience, phones are already buzzing. Clips are being trimmed. Captions are being drafted. Because everyone knows it now. That polite pushback, that calm refusal to be cornered, it didn't end the conversation. It started it. The red light on the camera blinks back on, and with it comes that familiar illusion that whatever just happened has been neatly boxed away during the commercial break. But it hasn't. Not really. The tension is still there, coiled beneath the surface, quieter now, more dangerous because of it. Timothée straightens slightly in his chair as the applause welcomes viewers back. He flashes a small smile, the kind designed to reset a room. It works on some people. Not all. Joy adjusts her glasses, glancing down at her notes, then up at him again. Her expression has shifted, less playful now, more intent. This isn't about catching him off guard anymore. This is about testing the boundaries he's drawn. So, she says lightly, we were talking about pressure. Timothée nods. Yes. And about expectations, Joy continues. Which brings me to something I've heard from fans and critics alike. There's a subtle tightening in Timothée's shoulders. Barely visible. But it's there. They say you want the benefits of fame, Joy says, without the accountability. A sharp intake of breath ripples through the audience. This time, there's no laughter cushioning the moment. Timothée doesn't answer immediately. He lets the sentence settle, lets its weight reveal itself. Inside, he feels that familiar internal calculation. How to respond without escalating. How to be honest without being baited into a soundbite. I don't see those things as separate, he says finally. His voice is still even, but it's firmer now. Accountability matters to me. I just don't believe it means constant performance. Joy tilts her head. Performance. Yes, Timothée says. Public declarations, reactive statements, being pushed to comment in ways that feel more about optics than impact. Sunny nods slowly. Sarah watches Joy carefully. Whoopi's gaze flicks between them, already anticipating where this could go. But optics matter, Joy presses. Whether you like it or not. Timothée meets her eyes. I agree. But so does integrity. The audience applauds again, louder than before. A few people cheer openly now. The energy has shifted. This is no longer an interview. It's a negotiation of values, playing out live. Joy waits for the applause to die down. Some would argue, she says, that your generation hides behind nuance. There it is. The generational line. Timothée smiles faintly. Or maybe we've learned from watching what happens when nuance is ignored. The reaction is immediate and visceral. Applause, cheers, a few gasps. Someone in the audience stands fully this time before quickly sitting back down, embarrassed but energized. Joy exhales sharply, shaking her head. You're very good with words. Timothée shrugs lightly. It's my job. Laughter breaks the tension for a moment, but Joy isn't done. Let me ask you something more personal, she says. Do you ever worry that by not taking clear public stances, you're disappointing people who see themselves in you? Timothée looks down at his hands for a moment. When he looks back up, his expression is more open now. Less guarded. Yes, he says. I think about that a lot. The room quiets again. I care deeply about people who connect with my work, he continues. And I don't take that lightly. But I also don't want to turn that connection into something transactional, where I owe opinions instead of honesty. Joy watches him, her expression unreadable. Sunny leans in. That's a fair point, she says. But there are moments when silence feels like absence. Timothée nods. And that's valid. I don't dismiss that feeling. He pauses, then adds softly. I just hope people can also accept that growth sometimes happens privately. The audience murmurs, thoughtful now rather than reactive. Joy taps her pen again, slower this time. You know, she says, when I was younger, public figures didn't have the option to sit things out. Timothée smiles politely. I think the world moves faster now. And sometimes that makes sitting with things more important, not less. Whoopi finally interjects, her voice calm but authoritative. I think what he's saying is that he doesn't want to speak just to hear himself talk. A few laughs ripple through the crowd. Joy glances at Whoopi, then back at Timothée. I just don't want people to mistake carefulness for indifference. Timothée nods, sincerely. Neither do I. There's a beat. Then he adds, quietly but clearly, but I also don't want people to mistake volume for care. That line lands like a final chess move. The applause is the loudest it's been all segment. This time, It doesn't feel split. It feels earned. Joy leans back in her chair, crossing her arms, studying him. Not hostile. Not amused. Curious. Well, she says after a moment, you're certainly not what people expect. Timothy smiles. I take that as a compliment. Laughter breaks through again, easing the tension without erasing it. As the segment winds toward its final minutes, the questions soften. They talk about his creative process, the loneliness of fame, the importance of mentors. But even in these safer waters, the earlier exchange casts a long shadow. Every answer Timothy gives now feels layered. Every smile feels intentional. The audience senses it too. They are not just watching a celebrity promote a project anymore. They are watching someone defend the right to define himself in real time. When Joy cracks another joke, lighter this time, Timothy laughs along easily. The edge has dulled, but it hasn't disappeared. Because something fundamental has shifted. Joy didn't overpower him. He didn't storm off. No voices were raised. But lines were drawn. And everyone in the room knows it. As the cameras begin to pull back again, Timothy leans back in his chair, hands resting loosely in his lap. He looks calm, grounded. But behind that calm is the knowledge that this moment will not stay contained within the studio. It never does. Clips are already spreading. Commentary is already forming. People are already choosing sides. And the story isn't over yet. Not even close. The applause that closes the segment feels different from the applause that opened it. It's not just polite. It's charged. Layered. The kind that carries opinions inside it. The kind that means people are already replaying moments in their heads even as their hands come together. Timothy stands when the hosts do, exchanging hugs, handshakes, soft thank yous. He leans in toward Whoopi, who murmurs something only he can hear. He smiles, nods. With Joy, the exchange is brief but civil. A smile. A look. A mutual acknowledgement that something real just happened. As he walks off stage, the lights dim slightly behind him, and the noise of the studio shifts. Backstage isn't loud in the way the audience is loud. It's quieter, more focused. Producers glance up from clipboards. A publicist steps in close, whispering, already half smiling, half concerned. That was something, she says. Timothy exhales, running a hand briefly through his hair. Yeah. He doesn't look shaken, but he does look thoughtful. Processing. He's used to attention, used to interpretation, but moments like this are different. This wasn't about a movie. This was about identity, about control, about whether he's allowed to decide how much of himself belongs to the public. In the studio, the audience filters out slowly, buzzing. You can hear it in fragments. Did you hear what he said about volume? She kept pushing him. He handled that so calmly. I don't know, I kind of agree with Joy. No, he made sense. Phones are already out. Clips replayed in shaky hands. Captions drafted before people even reach the doors. Within minutes, the first short video hits social media. A tight crop. Joy leaning forward. Timothy calm, composed. I don't think volume equals care. The comments explode. Some hail him as thoughtful, mature beyond his years. A rare celebrity who refuses to perform outrage on demand. Others accuse him of hiding behind politeness, of intellectualizing responsibility away. Think pieces begin forming in real time, threads stacking on threads. Timothée Chalamet quietly schools Joy Behar on live TV. Is politeness the new avoidance? A masterclass in calm pushback. The clip spreads faster than the show ever could. Back at the table, after Timothy is long gone, the hosts continue talking. But even then, his presence lingers. Joy cracks a joke to lighten the mood, but it lands differently now. Whoopi steers the conversation forward, professional as ever, but there's a subtle gravity underneath it. Later, off camera, Joy talks with a producer. She shrugs when the moment comes up. He's smart, she says. Very smart. It's not praise. It's not criticism. It's acknowledgement. By that evening, Timothy's name is trending. Not for a scandal. Not for a meltdown. But for restraint. And that unsettles people more than anger ever could. Media outlets dissect his tone. His pauses. The way he never raised his voice, never attacked, never apologized either. Body language experts weigh in. Some say his stillness was defensive. Others say it was grounded confidence. Fans flood his accounts with messages. Thank you for saying what so many of us feel. You don't owe anyone anything. Wish you'd been more direct. That was brave. That was disappointing. He reads some of them. Not all. He never does. That night, sitting alone, he replays the moment in his head, not with regret, but with curiosity. Could he have said more? Should he have said less? The questions don't torment him. They accompany him. That's the difference. The next morning, entertainment shows run the clip on loop. Panelists argue about whether he won the exchange, whether Joy went too far, whether this signals a shift in how younger celebrities engage with older media spaces. But what gets lost in all that noise is the simplest truth. He didn't come to fight. He didn't come to lecture. He didn't come to prove anything. He came prepared to be himself and refused to be pushed out of that position. And that's what made it uncomfortable. At the show, the producers quietly acknowledge it too. Not every viral moment comes from shouting. Sometimes it comes from someone calmly declining to play the role assigned to them. Joy, days later, addresses the moment briefly on air. Not defensively. Not apologetically. She calls it a good conversation. She says she respects thoughtful disagreement. And that's that. But viewers remember the pause before Timothée answered. The way the audience leaned in. The line he drew without raising his voice. Because in a world addicted to extremes, watching someone hold their ground gently feels almost radical. And maybe that's why the moment lasts. Not because it was explosive, but because it was restrained. Because it showed that confrontation doesn't always look like fire. Sometimes, it looks like calm. Sometimes, it looks like choosing your words carefully on a live stage and accepting whatever comes next. And sometimes, it looks like politely pushing back and letting the world argue about it afterward. Now it's your turn. Did Timothée handle that moment the right way, or should he have been more direct? Was Joy asking necessary questions, or did she push too far?